Antioch, University of Los Angeles's MFA program reading, live from our June 2020 virtual residency. Thank you to everyone for joining in from wherever you're joining us today. We're very excited to be able to share just a small aspect of our program with you. And this reading is extra special because we will have a few of our graduating students reading, as well as our special guest, the wonderful poet, Tommy Pico. And we're also live on Facebook right now. So I'm going to turn things over to our MC, Ana Maria Spagna.
Hello and welcome. This is always one of the most exciting aspects of residency, the chance to get to hear our cardinals reading from their own work. As faculty, we know our own students, but we don't get to hear the readings from students who have other mentors. So this is a delight and a community moment. And I wish we were all upstairs at the Antioch Library sharing beverages and snacks and browsing books. But we are here together. We have 4 wonderful graduating cardinals reading, as well as 2 faculty, guest faculty, and Terry Wolverton. So without further ado, I'm excited to introduce to you our first student reading, who is Yvonne, Onakeme, Etaghene.
Hello, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Okay, perfect. So first of all, I would like to thank the Most High and my angels for carrying me here. I would like to thank my mother and my father. May they both rest in peace. I would also like to thank all of my friends, family, and loved ones for tuning in. And also I would like to thank you for your listening, because I do not take it for granted ever. I will be reading from 2 selections. The first one is an excerpt of my novel, and the second one is a freestanding piece. No one pounds yam for one. August knew how to cook. Despite this, she rarely chose to. It was not some symbol of financial or social status like it clearly was for some of her work colleagues, who took an almost devilish joy in passing on household chores to the house girls who tended to their homes, tolerated their condescension and, no doubt, abuse. Nigerians of a certain class loved having someone to be better than, truly a British colonial influence. Guineans were no different. August lived alone. Her flat in Accra overlooked a shorter building. She lived on the 4th floor, one of the larger buildings in the area, and the only apartment complex on her street. There was a hair salon, carpentry shop, and a few houses on her street. This Saturday morning, she was up and awake at an hour before the noise of the day began. No matter how early she woke up, there was always someone awake before her. Is it everywhere Africans are early risers, or just West Africa? The building next door was the shade of turquoise that felt like a snapshot of the ocean, as if the ocean splashed across that building and it had somehow retained its exact color. Currently in her kitchen, she had Indomie noodles, a few eggs, 1 lonely onion, garlic, leftovers sure to soon spoil, and a healthy bunch of assorted greens. August, usually with the takeaway, the buka food, the grabbing something on the go from the side of the road, but she felt different this Saturday morning. Her eating habits were disorganized. Honestly, that's what she missed the most about being home in Lagos. She never missed a single meal in her mother's house. August's small kitchen window was a rectangle through which she saw this turquoise little slice of the ocean. Her short little curtains pushed to the edges of the window like crumpled cloth in the corner, riding a light breeze. Across the street, she could see Auntie Ifoma preparing a large pot of what looked like white soup outside, and on any other Saturday, August would have had an order with one with banku. August's eyes focused on the people exiting the turquoise building, besides hers, as she absently washed her hands in the sink and began peeling the plantain. They looked like little specks on a painting from where she stood, barefoot in her kitchen, in her pajamas. Melody had a unique palate. "Babe, I just like a little bit of sweet on my tongue," Melody had said, too many weekends ago to count. Melody loved sweet things even when it wasn't dessert. Melody liked a splash of something sweet, even with rice and beans, even with suya, even with jollof rice. "Baby, please, just add a little sweet something for me," Melody said. "To the soup?" August asked. "Yes, nah. How? August squinted, perplexed. Why? It's just what I like, Melody said. Blasphemy. August was cooking for Melody this morning, as if she was in bed still sleeping, snoring lightly, tossing slightly. August, cooking for Melody this morning, hundreds of mornings after their last morning, made August feel closer to the person she felt the farthest from. August sliced the plantain into toothpick-thin slivers and sauteed them alongside onions, garlic. August washed greens and chopped them roughly. She liked her vegetable soup with meaty bits of greens, so she chopped them into big bits. She added handfuls of wata leaf, bouillon cubes, curry, salt, then ugu leaf. She let the soup cook covered. Sweetness. August placed plantain on her shopping list with an absent mind, even now, months after she'd seen Melody last. August still made her driver slow so she could buy pineapple from the side of the road on her way home from work to later eat with fried eggs for breakfast. Present in August now was an instinct to search for sweetness that she just could not shake. Piece número dos. Alone in a beach house. Alone in a beach house by the sea. Ivy had to go to the ocean. She was obsessed with it, with this idea of being by the ocean. She had a house, a little beach house by the sea made of wood with door jambs that would swell and shrink according to the season, the heat, the humidity in the air. In her heart, Ivy had someone she hadn't been able to forget or forgive, let go of or return to. Truly torture. Moving boxes still sitting all over the living room. Salt in the air comforted her, foggy in the morning, shouting, "Well, leave then, the fuck? Am I holding you? Am I holding you here?" She woke up with a jagged jackknife upwards, terrified, disoriented. The ocean waves crashed outside her bedroom window to her right. Jackfruit, dragon fruit, coconut, mango, guava. "Welcome to the beach," the person at her door said the next morning. She missed her this morning like she did every single fucking morning. Every day that goes by, every day that goes by. Ever have something so deep in your mind it won't let go of you? On my mind, on my mind, on my mind, I left my life, started a new one. Is this obsession? The house was dusty. The ocean was loud. A pile of boxes littered across the edges of her living room. She didn't know where to begin, so she began nowhere, went into the kitchen, began clearing and cleaning. Under the sink, half-used cleaning products, she grabbed paper towels she'd bought earlier, began disinfecting, tossing out old sponges, soiled paper towels. She scrubbed the sink until the old-school, deep, double-sided white sink was shining, as much as an old-school, deep, double-sided white sink can shine. She washed every dish in the cabinets. They looked clean. She washed them anyway. There was a knock at her door. Christ, I need a moment of peace. Please, who are these people? Yes, she said to the stranger at her door. Hello, I live down the way. Thought I would welcome you. In the stranger's outstretched arms, a bunch of green plantain lay, hacked off a tree, huddled and bundled together like a little plantain family. Wow, thank you. She placed the plantain on baby pink tiled counter in the corner, propped against the precise right angle two walls made. She cleaned to clear her mind, to still her mind, to focus her mind, to forget unforgettable things that refused to leave her mind. She wanted something else to think about, but we do not choose our obsessions. They set their sights on us, and we, honestly, are utterly helpless. We, first with piqued interest, explore. This exploration, this curiosity grows into a light fascination, which then morphs into something deeper, love perhaps, a deep love, maybe. Devotion. Is devotion deeper than love, yet less than worship? And before you know anything else, you don't care about anything else because you are officially, utterly enraptured. After every dish she washed, countertops scrubbed and wiped, she swept the light debris and dust right out the back door. No matter what, she needed a clean kitchen. Wouldn't it be so easy, so much easier if all she missed was something physical, carnal, sexual, something pleasure related, easily replaceable with some other pleasure, some other person, some other body? Wouldn't that be easier, simpler? Her neck. Wow. I mean, there's women and then there's women. I guess the only difference between being I love this woman, adored this woman, ached for her. Have you ever ached for a woman? It's not the same as wanting or hunger. It is deeper. Everything she touches, to me, she sprinkles magic there. I can't imagine another human being walking by her and not noticing her neck, the sparkle in her eyes, her swagger, every detail that I love with every part of me and cannot forget, no matter how much I smoke. I want smoke, I beg. Now, what else can ease my mind than to blur the edges of the pain just a little bit for just a little bit? Mbana merci. Thank you so much.
That was wonderful, Yvonne. Thank you so much. Such beautiful words and such a lovely, lovely reading. Our next reader is Jeri Frederickson. Jeri, take the stage.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight in this virtual space. I certainly wish I was in a physical space with you all over cheese and wine and sweat. And if you hear Chicago's thunderstorms, then at least if we were all in the same storm. But thank you for showing up from wherever you are today. A huge thank you to Natalie and Daisy. Thank you to Victoria, Bernadette, and Lisa and Steve. Thank you to my mentors, Colette Friedman, Richard Garcia, Jim Daniels, and Maggie Smith. Thank you to my Cardinal cohort. We did it, we're graduating. Thank you to my friends and my family, especially the ones who are able to show up on Zoom and Facebook today. Finally, thank you to my grandfather who passed before I started Antioch, for always investing in my life, for talking with me on Sundays, and for making space for my life to look different than the one that you imagined. I will be reading 5 poems. I am going to give a brief content warning. There are a couple poems that include themes or words of violence against humans and animals. So with that, this first one is called Rather Than Failing. Rather than failing, we pick apart the discord in the front pew as the singers fight each other's notes. We roll our eyes at the worship leader's new goatee. We yell at the driver blowing the red light as we turn left. We argue over what is actually gluten and soy-free at Panera. We pick apart each other's attempts to train the dog to stay or be soothed during storms. We take turns calling her over to rub her belly and scratch her left ear. We watch her tail flip above the tall grasses she circles as the squirrels she never catches chatter. Let us talk of the amount of rain that's fallen, or the potholes in the road, or anything but the question we have for each other. Of parenthood and childhood. I am grown, you are going deaf. We love each other. Let us take the dog for a walk. This next poem is forthcoming in Thimble magazine in their summer publication. This is called The Moving Shelter. The moving shelter. The yellow cab driver looked back when I said, I'm going to get my ID and credit card. Then I want you to drive me home. Those quiet hands turned the wheel toward me as my friend's lip curled and left the dark blood on my chest. Halloween broke into All Souls. One hand on the wheel, one rubbing his face. The driver moved all the pieces of me away from that curled lip, those teeth with my blood. His feet slowed the wheels at every house I puzzled over. Not this one or that one, but on this street of light up ghosts. I couldn't offer the truth. I'd had only one drink the whole night. He nodded as I opened the door. I'm going to come back, and then I want you to take me home. The driver waited as I found my body on the boards of someone's deck and my ID with the host, who asked if I was okay and where my friend had gone as I left to find the driver waiting for my body to return, just as my ID returned, just as my credit card returned. The whites of his eyes steadied a road behind me as he drove me to a home I couldn't lock the cold out of. but for a while I was warm. This next one is called Turning My Childhood Kaleidoscope. Turning my childhood kaleidoscope. In the mirrored end I see the puppy with a clown carved face, peeing as I come home, whapping her soaked tail against the yellowing couch. Safe for all ages. Do not hold up to the sun. On the label, I am the girl who sat for hours over cooling coffee, breathing on the right words to soothe someone else's scrapes. Turning, I see a frog glowing against the rotting tree, a serpent ringed in red and black, coiled to strike, growing out of a child's shoulder, the scales wrapped through tissue in the ribs. Her shoulder, the forked tongue we never hear, but in little wisps it tastes the air. As it turns, I am the puppy, sniffing a stone lady at the park draped in pigeon seasoning. In the mirrored end, I see I have set my childhood nightmares a place to rest their leather heads. Turn and I am the snake. Turn and I am the frog. I will stick out my bright tongue to the snake. I will taste what I turn. Two more. This was written last fall after failing grandly to make dinner while watching an episode of Our Planet, which is a nature documentary. This is called Episode 2 of Our Planet. David Attenborough tells me, as the oil bubbles in the pan, the walrus lost their ice. The music cuts. I click the burner off and flip the fish. Silence as 100 walrus fall over each other in their thirst for water. I drop the fork, 100 sunburned giants tumbling over jagged rock where ice used to be their slide. I lean against the burner, clicking but not lighting, as 100 times 2 tusks and flippers reach out. My face reaches for my fork. The camera pans back to tusks embedded in the iceless ground. Bloodshot eyes close. It is silent. It is silent. My parents called fish walrus food to make me eat my dinner. Once a month we timed the Cincinnati Zoo visit with the walrus feeding, and I'd grab the bars. I'd grab a glass, fill it with whiskey and ice, bloodshot eyes and a tusk in silence. I'm grabbing the bars. The walrus were fed, then sunbathed in the zoo, and David Attenborough tells me, above the silence, 100 walrus chose to avoid a stampede, to relax. Then the ice melts in my glass. Silence. Then 100 walrus in my glass asking for ice. This final poem is from a crown of sonnets in my manuscript. These sonnets are about growing up and weave the presence of apples in both their literal and metaphorical roles in my childhood through the poems. Hopefully someday the whole crown will be published and you can read the whole cycle. For my crown of sonnets, I use 10 syllables per line. You'll notice I did not say iambic pentameter, that's intentional. And the last line of one sonnet becomes the first line of the next sonnet, and so on and so on. And then the final sonnet is all the first lines in order as they've appeared in the cycle. This is that final sonnet made up of all first lines. Too many apples to care about one, unless that one uproots the whole damn tree. What can I do with you? My applesauce, begging for a new choice, I wring its neck. Am I left to this crank and steam again, or will I beg you to see me before her funeral? I chose to pray to grow, but never be called to bear fruit. I am opened like an old cellar door with a creaky spine and secrets below. The Lord will always provide enough food. The juice will always be too sweet to drink. We gather around the grace of crossed limbs. They bless me as I'm jumping from this tree. Thank you so much.
That was fantastic, Jeri. Wonderful poems, wonderful reading. the walrus and the apples juxtaposed, a wonderful choice that will stay with me, quite vivid. Thank you so much. Our next reader is going to be Christine Waloszczyk, and she will be joined by friends, so she will introduce her friends to you. Christine.
Thank you, Anna Maria. And before we begin, I'd like to thank Tanana Reeve-Dew, Christine Hale, and Ross Brown for their dedicated mentorship throughout this story's journey from novel to screenplay. I'm grateful for the assistance today by my fellow readers and MFA graduates, Alicia Escadabo and Mark Royster-Stallion. Thelema is a complex supernatural family drama. It involves Thelema and her daughter Harmony, the product of a date rape by the actual devil in 1960s rural Kentucky. In the upcoming scene, the miserably friendless Thelema has a hazy recollection of the night her soul was taken and Harmony was conceived. She as yet has no idea that the wealthy music producer Bill is the devil who has plans for his daughter to rule hell with him when she comes of age. Until now, Thelema has only seen him as a quirky loner, much like herself. Here, in this sequence of scenes, Bill appears in an airship, the Abaddon, into which Thelema is transported via a light beam elevator. Okay, just bring it up here. Thank you to all those who are attending. The elevator doors open to reveal an ornate lobby with a casino atmosphere. Thelema steps out onto a red carpet and follows it to a red velvet roped off area where a tux-clad host stands at the podium. He holds up a scanner and points it at Thelema's waist. As the host steps away to speak to a page, Thelema looks up and cannot believe her eyes. The interior of the ship is larger than a cruise ship, about 20 stories high, encircled with stacked glass balconies around the edges and entrances to private living spaces above the multi-leveled high-end main entertainment complex. Bands play on glass stages, people swim in clear-bottom swimming pools and gamble at card tables and slot machines. She also sees a football stadium and a basketball court with crowds cheering. Music icons like Johnny Cash and Jim Morrison wander past the podium, aimlessly appearing bored. The host returns, and who but Bill, who has matured a bit, dressed in glam rock apparel and high-heeled boots, emerges from behind him and extends his hand to Thelema. She spins around looking in all directions, beautiful women and music everywhere. It's one huge party scene. This place is over the top.
What the hell, Bill?
When people see them, they talk behind their cans. Who is this new girl?
All kidding aside, welcome to my realm, the Abaddon.
How?
Oh, all this? Again, my parents.
I know they're rich, but this? They must be richer than God.
So to speak, I guess they are.
Bill stops in front of a stage where Soul, a 15-year-old, sweeter, gentler, and younger version of Thelema, plays a guitar solo to an audience seated at candlelit tables. Thelema appears to be intrigued by Soul's performance as the conversation with Bill continues.
This ship was actually a product of a space project they did. Of course, I saw its potential when they had no more use for it.
Bill notices Thelema's interest in Soul's beautiful high-pitched performance.
She's quite talented, isn't she? Does she remind you of anyone?
Interior bedroom night, hazy. Thelema's flashback. Young Thelema hears Jimi Hendrix music echo as she watches another young woman, who looks like Soul struggle with Bill. Or is it Tommy? Her visions fade in and out, blurred. Is Soul being raped? Confused, Thelema tries to get out of the room, then passes out. Thelema opens her eyes for a moment as she lays on a bed and sees Soul dressed in white, chained at the ankle to a monstrous, slimy beast with great wings and a scaly tail. Soul's hair trails behind her along the bare floorboards. Soul looks up at Thelema and whispers, "Why? Why?" The Soul's eyes close and butterflies burst from her hair in many colors, then turn gray and fall to the floor dead. The scene fades to black as Thelema gasps and passes out. Interior Abaddon stage area, night. Thelema has a hypnotic look on her face, watching Soul. Bill takes Thelema by the elbow, and arm in arm, they turn away from Soul's stage.
Walk with me, I need your help.
As they walk through the crowded floating pleasure palace, famous musicians pass in the background. Thelema is starstruck.
I have a problem. My parents have issued me an ultimatum. Of course, you're familiar with the story of Job in the Bible.
Of course.
Yes, well, you might say my parents are somewhat religious and don't entirely agree with my way of life.
Interior Abaddon dungeon, night, continuous. Bill leads Thelema into a dungeon where she hears horrifying screams of pain from behind locked metal doors with tiny peepholes.
How can I help?
Harmony. They want to wager with her life, like Job's. You'll be responsible for building her up and tearing her down. Of course, we don't have to follow all the rules. I doubt my parents will notice.
Thelema stops.
Why on earth Harmony?
Screams still pierce the air in the background, and Thelema flinches.
Have you lost your mind, Bill?
Why do you think I've taken such an interest in her development so far?
Thelema turns to look at Bill in disbelief as Bill steadies her with his hand.
Because you're an old family friend?
Oh, come on, Thelema. You see how successful my business is? I know you will. Admit it. You hate her, and you jump on the opportunity to fuck with Harmony's mind even more than you already have.
That's not...
We build her up, then drive her to the edge by her 18th birthday. She has to turn to us, though in the end. Okay, so it's tricky. If we win, I'll be promoted to management in the family business.
Thelema gasps, backs away.
You want me to help you kill her? I don't like the kid, but I wouldn't... You have lost your mind.
Of course not. You're getting me all wrong. Did Job die? No. Harmony won't crack under pressure. I believe in the kid. She'll simply have to surrender to me and not God. Now, that doesn't sound hard, does it?
Bill opens one of the slats to allow Thelema to look inside one of the dungeon cells. Blood-curdling screams pierce the air. Angle on cell interior. What Thelema sees are pieces of flesh on the floor, a skull, and human skeletal bits, and blood, lots of it. The parts are moving, slithering across the blood-stained floor. Thelema recoils and vomits. Bill hands her a Kleenex from his pocket, motions for a man in an executioner's outfit to clean up the mess while Thelema dabs her lip with the Kleenex.
Clean that up, will you?
Thelema begins to cry and keeps her distance from Bill, horrified.
What kind of monster are you?
Bill grabs Thelema and draws her close.
Now, my dear, don't make a scene.
Bill ushers Thelema out of the dungeon.
Okay, hear me out.
What the hell was that?
Bill stops and turns toward Thelema, holding her steady by the upper arms, looks at her intently with his most honest face.
Thelema, listen. It's not me. It's my parents. They are ultra-religious people with a
Thelema nods uncertainly, incredulous.
So
I can't hear.
she's
Oh.
been making waves with my parents, and I'm afraid if you don't help me, she's going to end up in there. So please, Thelema, please say that you'll help me. You're the only one I can count on to get me out of this mess.
Interior Baden entertainment area continuous. Bill and Thelema continue their walk to the sound of slot machines chiming.
Harmony will completely accept our point of view. If we're successful, in fact, she'll praise us. She'll never love you more.
Bill faces Thelema and takes both hands, her hands in his.
You know how special you've always been to me, Thelema. I wouldn't drag you into all of this if I didn't have complete confidence in you. Together, we cannot fail.
Bill kisses her forehead as the room begins to spin around them, and suddenly, interior Thelema's room night continuous. Thelema stands in the middle of her room alone, astounded. Was she sleepwalking? What just happened? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Christine and Mark and Alicia. What an original way to approach a reading. Any reading gives it such life, and especially to pull it off on Zoom. That was just fantastic. Our next person to introduce is Mick Parsons, and he will be introducing our featured reader, Tommy Pico. So Mick, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. I am honored to introduce one of Antioch's special guests during this virtual residency, Tommy Pico. Tommy Pico is the author of the books IRL, Nature Poem, and Junk. Among his numerous accolades, Pico is a winner of the 2017 Brooklyn Library Literary Prize and a finalist for the 2018 Kate Tufts Discovery Award, and winner of the 2018 American Book Award and finalist for the 2018 Lambda Literary Award. Junk was a finalist for the 2019 Lambda Literary Award. He was the founder and editor-in-chief of Birdsong, an anti-racist, queer positive collective, small press and zine that published art and writing from 2008 to 2013. In addition, he was a Queer Art Mentor's inaugural fellow, a 2013 Lambda Literary Fellow in Poetry, a 2017 NYSCA NYFA Fellow in Poetry from the New York Foundation for the Arts, and was awarded the 2017 Friends of Literature Prize from the Poetry Foundation. He also won a 2018 Whiting Award and has been profiled in Time Out New York, the New York Times, and the New Yorker. According to Kevin O'Rourke, Junk is, quote, a panopticon of a book, end quote. A panopticon, a prison designed so that all inmate cells can be seen from a single point by a single guard, is both a terrifying and humane description of what is more than a book of poetry. Pico doesn't shy away from the long poem or the long narrative it invites. Combining the voice of the diva and the divine, search for community, connection, love, and acceptance, Junk is also a love poem to language itself. Quote, you would suck your teeth and say bee sting in them, and you generally don't want to be one of them, but if needed, if someone was messing with you at school, they and them burned with intimidation, thems would literally fight, end quote. Take stream of consciousness, combine it with an ear for voices, a feel for the expansive narrative that is best told in the poetic, and a contemporary writer's sense of language as artifact, and you have Tommy Pico's poetry. The best way to understand Pico's work is to read it as sensory overload. Again, according to O'Rourke, Pico's poetry is overloaded with, quote, confusing, dizzying array of contradictory things one must keep track of via lines that flow into one another seamlessly. Life, as shown in line after seamless line, is something that washes over us and consumes and leaves us both wanting more and wanting maybe to lose his phone number. Please join me in welcoming Tommy Pico.
Hello, hi, what's going on? I'm Tommy, thank you for having me, I'm here. Oh, wait, let me just, because I bought this ring light, so I might as well know if I can use it, you know what I mean? Here we go. Thank you for having me, and also thank you, Victoria, for getting in touch and asking me to do this. And, you know, staying on my ass when I miss deadlines about getting, you know, the course subscriptions or whatever to you. I'm gonna read a couple of essays, actually. In the quarantine, I've been commissioned to write a few things, and I thought, like, you know, I'd share them with you because this is not really my medium, but I'm sort of bending it to my will. And I just want you nonfiction people to know I'm coming for that discipline. So this was written for The Believer, for their Survivor issue. So we basically had to talk about how having survived something has been beneficial in like quarantine or whatever, which is like a weird assignment, but they were like, we'll give you X amount of money. And I was like, will do, thank you. And just like for context, my due date for this essay was May 1st. So like, it was like a month before like uprising stuff. Otherwise that would have been the subject of this essay, but this was just when we had normal quarantine panic and frustration and sadness. So I sort of long for that bygone era of just worrying about, I don't know, staying in the house. You know what I mean? So here we go. I don't have a title for this. It's just like survival or whatever. I started a new project, I tell Max over a house party and bring my humongous protein powder jug into the frame. Someone somewhere says we're going to have a meat shortage or something, allegedly. On YouTube, sometimes I do the Tracy Andersons. Sometimes the Body Fit by Amy. Sometimes the Has Fit or the Mad Fit or the one with the lady in the 2-pound weights for 4 minutes that somehow spaghettis my arms every time. In Zoom therapy, I asked Dr. John why the panic hits hardest when I'm still, when I'm in bed, when I try to read, when I'm sitting down for dinner. Dinner is anytime between 11 a.m. and 11 a.m. Dr. John says it's a pandemic. He says when endangered, the lizard brain wants to run, but the higher brain knows there's nowhere to go. It's not that kind of danger. On FaceTime, Jenny says she's been using Pedialyte bottles as weights. On my house party dolls house party group, Tasba says she's been using an app called Workout for Women. She says that she likes it because it's not a real person telling her what to do. They show you the workouts beforehand. She knows what she's signing up for. Marcos says he should get on that. He says his double chin is getting a double chin. Marcos doesn't have a double chin. The label says mix a scoop of protein powder with your favorite drink. I don't think they mean black cherry White Claws. Dr. John says the two brains aren't galloping together. They're out of step. I tried the Bowflex 6-minute ab workout. I don't think it works my abs, but it's good cardio, I tell Nikki and Kat on our FaceTime art accountability catch-up. None of us are making art right now. I asked my food for thought group chat if the girls are mixing protein powder with Diet Coke. I tell Dr. John I haven't had a workout routine like this since I was 15. He asked what happened when I was 15. I was a gay res kid in a racist, homophobic high school 40 miles away. Every school day, I went to new horrors, to new ways people said they were gonna hurt me, and did. I went from 230 pounds to 140 pounds in basically 6 months. I'm 6'2". Kat says she's been doing CrossFit through Plush Fitness every day with her boyfriend. I go to the Team Mashallah Poetry Eid Zoom reading and see Kaveh, Angel, Safia, Fatih, and Hanif read. I see Hugh and Jenny and Shira in the audience. We are overwhelmed. We cry. I notice an ache in my shoulder. I panic. I'm legit convinced I have the virus, and it doesn't once cross my mind that I'm sore from working out. I use the CBD muscle rub I got from Morgan for your sex injuries, she said at the time. See, for about 6 months last year, every time I had sex, something bad would happen to my body. A laceration, a broken toe. Maybe quarantine is for the best, she says. Survive, vital, vivid. Chantal's been strength training too. She says cardio was a lie. She breaks up for a second. Tracy time, producer Alex texts me when she does a Tracy Anderson. No matter how hard I stir, I can't get the protein powder to smooth all the way into the water. So globs of it stick to the glass in my teeth. Joe calls going for a run nut. Everyone thinks it's funny except Fran. Fran texts, I'm finally getting a butt. Working out is like a video game, except the video game is my body. Heather Robinson is my new queen, Sarah texts. I make a standing desk. Max says there's no cars in the street, so he's been running in the middle of the road. Dr. John posits that in the absence of control, I'm exerting control over the one thing I do have control over. It takes me 3 Janet Jackson songs to walk to Morgan's house. It's different then from now, because I've learned to nourish my body instead of deprive it. I've dug my heels into this moment. I'm sitting with Fati and Essay and Morgan in Morgan's yard. This is our pod. I no longer want to disappear. It's a hot day, but we're in the shade. There's a breeze. The dog's asleep. I close my eyes and I'm right here. Okay, so this is an essay that I wrote for, what was it? So as of today, June 22nd, I am a poetry editor for Catapult magazine. And each week they're gonna post a new poem that I've chosen from people that I hit up for submissions. And this is an essay that I wrote to usher in the segments. And it's available online, but I thought, in order to like put the word out there, the Catapult's doing poetry now, and I'm the poetry editor, I thought I'd read the poetry essay. So why poetry? This is why. I ran into Morgan at the Trader Joe's in Hollywood in the frozen pizza aisle the day before everything shut down. It was only a little bit chaotic because even during panic buying, the Trader Joe's in Hollywood isn't even a third as wild as any given New York Trader Joe's on a regular ass Wednesday afternoon. My cart was full of frozen pizzas. Morgan's cart was full of flowers and wine. I don't know what to get because I don't know what we're preparing for or for how long, she said. I don't know. Everyone I talked to was scared of a potential travel ban, so everyone was leaving. Mike had just moved to Austin to be with family, and Jenny had just moved back to New York to be with family, and Tasba had just moved back to Bishop to be with family, and Drea had just moved back to San Diego to be with family. In those first 2 weeks of uncertainty, while I and most people were waiting to see if we developed symptoms, the list of which seemed to expand every day, I did YouTube exercise videos and read on Instagram Live during the day, and played Nintendo Switch at night while watching, High Maintenance over pasta and White Claws at night. New articles with bad science journalism, but absolute opinions came out on the hour. Could you get it outside? Could you get it from singing? Were we ever gonna eat butts again? Every day was 10 days. Every day was another day I mentally marked off the calendar. Another day since I'd been within 6 feet of somebody, or another day since I'd been to the movies or in the studio or at the bookstore. Oh, and there was the fun little exercise of mistaking the Rona for regular shit. Is this a muscle ache because of the Rona, or because I'm sore from working out for an hour every day? Is this shortness of breath because of the Rona, or because of the anxiety from living through a global pandemic? Is this a chill because of the Rona, or because I'm drinking a glass of cold water naked in my living room with a fucking fan on? Joe answered all of my questions with, we simply don't have the data. I cried in therapy, telling Dr. John I just wanted someone to tell me what was dangerous and what was safe. Then I got a group email from Nalini saying she wanted to get a bunch of us poets on a Zoom call to read to each other. A poem of our own and maybe a poem from somebody else. I almost canceled. Like, poetry in a global pandemic? In a severe economic downturn? Fuck that shit. But I went. There were maybe 12 of us in the room. Everybody read. I felt it. Poetry and honesty. Poetry and a clarity of feeling. Poetry and a truth. I needed something so badly to be true. It filled me. And believe you me, in the absence of Dick, I really needed to be filled with something. I need clarity and truth and honesty. And if I'm being real, Catapult is paying the poets for their poems, and I think it's really important to pay writers for their work, especially in the midst of bleak financial times. So fast forward to this moment in this global pandemic, after curfew and the tank on my street and the helicopters circling my block and donating to various bail funds, and the rally I went to this afternoon organized by the Little Bangladesh Youth Group, and kids holding signs like Little Bangladesh for Black Lives at the intersection trying to get cars to honk, and the protest in Liberty Park the day before, and the day before, and the day before, and the day before, and eating double cheeseburgers in Morgan's yard, and this strawberry margarita is starting to hit, and I literally can't remember the last time I wore deodorant. I hope you like this poetry series. I hope it fills you with something. Be safe. And I'm gonna finish off, because this person made a cameo in my essay, I'm gonna read a poem by Morgan Parker to finish it out. Love of my life. This poem is called Please Wait, or There Are More Beautiful Things Than Beyonce. Please wait to record Love Jones at 8:48 Saturday on BET until your life is no longer defined by Beyonce. Ants crawling over fallen leaves and little pieces of dog shit, empty chicken boxes glowing with the remembrance of Greece. There are more beautiful things than Beyonce. Self-awareness, leftover mascara in clumps, recognizing a pattern. This is for all the grown women out there whose countries hate them and their brothers, who carry knives in their purses down the street. Maybe they will not get out alive. Maybe they will turn into air or news or brown flower petals. There are more beautiful things than Beyonce. Lavender, education, becoming other people, the fucking sky. It's so overused because no one's sure of it, how it floats with flagrant privilege and feels it can ask any question. Every day its ego gets bigger and you let that happen. But one day, your shit will be unbelievably together. One day, you'll care a whole lot, and you'll always take vitamins and exercise without bragging, and words will fit perfectly into your mouth, like an olive soaked in gin. The glory of an olive soaked in gin and its smooth smallness. A gloss will snowfall onto your cheeks, the top of your lip. The sidewalks will be the same, evidenced. Combing your records, you'll see the past and think, okay, once I was a different kind of person. Thank you.
That was tremendous, Tommy. Thank you so much. If there is anything more beautiful than Beyonce, it is your words and how you put them together and how you've read them for us. So, and I will never think of it as anything else but the Rona from now on. So thank you, thank you. To introduce our last reader this afternoon, we have Leonora Simonovis. Leonora.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Terry Wolverton is a poet, novelist, editor, and activist. Among her poetry collections are Shadow and Praise, Embers, a novel and poetry, Mystery Brews, and Black Slip, which was nominated for a Lambda Literary Award. Her novels include The Labyrinth Reunion and Bailey's Beads. She has also edited several anthologies with writer and editor Robert Blake, including His, Brilliant New Fiction by Gay Writers, Hers, Brilliant New Fiction by Lesbian Writers, and Blood Whispers, LA Writers on AIDS. These are a testament to the author's commitment to not only give visibility to the work, but to create a solid and supportive community and reach a greater audience. Wolverton also collaborated with choreographer Heidi Ducker and collage dance theater on performances Subversions and Under Eden. During an interview with Owen Keenan about her novel Bailey's Beads, Wolverton explained her interest in the intricacies of identity and how it ties to societal and familial expectations. In the novel, the character Bryn is in a coma, and the reader only learns about who she is through her mother and her lover's perceptions of her. Bryn is unable to speak, and yet we read fragments of her unconsciousness under the title Splinters throughout the novel. The fragmentation allows us to see a side of Bryn that is less narrative and perhaps more similar to the complexity of any human being. Wolverton's memoir, Insurgent Muse, Life and Art at the Women's Building, published in 2002, describes her experience teaching and working at the Women's Building, as well as the victories and struggles of the lesbian and feminist movements in Los Angeles. The book was chosen as one of the best books of the year by the Los Angeles Times, won the Judy Grant Award from Publishing Triangle, and was a finalist for the Lambda Book Award. One of the most salient qualities of this memoir is her dedication as a teacher, as evidenced in this quote. I am a teacher, and I see in my students' eyes their need for this medicine, this vision of art and community. I have seen the need for this medicine again and again in the eyes of marginalized people. Everyone who's been told they do not exist, they have no right to their stories, that no one will hear what they have to say. Wolverton's poems are short and powerful and explore a variety of themes related to sexuality, identity, family, and place. In her collection, Shadow and Praise, each poem begins with the last line of the previous one, creating a chain effect that sings the stark reality of the speaker, and at the same time takes us into a spiritual journey where even the most insignificant object deserves our undivided attention. But they also reflect about a reality that not everyone sees, like when the speaker says, "There will never be revolution in the US as long as the shelves are stocked." Terry Wolverton's experience as a teacher is as diverse as her work. She has taught at the Women's Building, Conexus Women's Center, Centro de Mujeres, where she founded the Visions and Revisions writing program, the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Center, UCLA Extension, Agape, and California Institute of the Arts. She is also the founder of Writers at Work, a creative writing studio in Los Angeles, and a certified instructor of Kundalini Yoga. Wolverton lives in Los Angeles and since 2007 has served as affiliate faculty in the MFA writing program at Antioch University, Los Angeles. Please join me in welcoming Terry Wolverton.
Thank you so much, Lenora. That's a beautiful introduction, and thanks to all of you who are here. I often will say about myself that I always like to take on new writing challenges and do things that I haven't done before. And last year I had that opportunity. I was approached by a publisher about writing a novel for hire. And they gave me a brief story outline, and it was up to me to write the book. One of the challenges is that I had to finish a first draft in 20 weeks, which meant I had to write 1,000 words a day. And I didn't know if I could do that, but I did, happily. So the novel is called The Raven, and we follow Rebecca Lopez. Oh, it's a young adult Gothic novel. Not something that I would necessarily take on or come out of my own initiative. But Rebecca Lopez is abandoned by her father when she's at the age of 8, and she begins to sleepwalk, and in her dreams she visits this house, this old Victorian house. And there's a man in the house who plays with her and chases her around. And her mom is quite freaked out about it, but they kind of get through that time. You know, it's trauma. And Rebecca is now 16. And her mom has just taken a job as the school nurse at an exclusive private school north of Santa Barbara. One of the perks of the job is that Rebecca gets to go to high school there, which she does not want to do. So here's where we pick up the story. Rebecca had been restless during those weeks in August. "Mom," she complained, "there's no place to go around here. I'm just stuck in the house with nothing to do. Why can't I go see Trix or Lola?" her close friends from Van Nuys High. Clarice had assured her, "Once the students come back to campus, you'll settle in and make friends. You've always liked school." But from the moment the Penmore students arrived, parking their cars and yanking their Maxwell Scott luggage from the trunks, jockeying for who would get the best dorm rooms, it had been clear they had no interest in the new girl, whom they also called Scholarship Girl when they knew she could overhear them. She had to pass by their dorm every morning, walking in front of eyes that coolly assessed and dismissed her. On that first morning, when they'd seen her walk over from the complex that housed the staff, the students at Penmore had instantly and instinctively identified Rebecca's place in the pecking order, at the bottom. "Hey, who are you?" a stocky boy with mean eyes had yelled out that first day. Although it was early in the morning, the September sun was already relentlessly hot and bright. Rebecca was about to respond when she noticed his posture, arms folded across his chest, his mouth a scowl. She just kept walking. "Hey, are you deaf as well as ugly?" he continued. Other students turned to watch her, eager to see what would happen. Rebecca did what she would have done on Van Nuys Boulevard, where guys often felt free to express themselves to her without being invited. She raised her middle finger in salute and said, "Bite me." The boy, whose name she would later learn was Kevin, was at her side in a flash. He grabbed her wrist and squeezed as if to pop her bones. "What did you say?" he taunted. She forced herself not to be afraid. She was used to going to school with gangbangers or their wannabe cousins. No way she was going to be afraid of some white guy. She kept looking him in the eye and without raising her voice repeated, "Bite me." Among the guys she had known at Van Nuys, there was an unwritten code. You don't fight girls. Girls might fight girls and kick their asses, but guys only fought guys. But without warning, this guy shoved her to the ground. She felt her breath knocked out of her, warm asphalt digging into her back. The group of students began to circle closer. "No," Kevin sneered, "bite me." Just then, a campus security guard drove up in a golf cart. This interrupted the unfolding moment, and the students backed a couple of steps away from her, as if to assume a posture of deniability. Instead of admonishing Kevin or any of the assembled students, the guard merely said, "First period starts in 3 minutes. Get on over to class now." He managed to deliver those words without looking directly at any of them. There was no hint of confrontation in his tone. What the hell? They had armed cops at Van Nuys High School, and that had been weird until she got used to it. But she couldn't imagine this guy on his golf cart, pale skin freckling in the bright sunlight, being able to handle any kind of real trouble. No one was especially quick to follow his instructions, but neither did he drive away. He sat there, his underarms sprouting sweat stains in his khaki uniform shirt, looking at no one in particular. Eventually, students began peeling away from the circle around Rebecca's body, still half sprawled on the pavement, and made their way to one of the 3 buildings where classes took place. Kevin took the opportunity to hock up a loogie on the grass near her head before he sauntered away. No one, including the guard, moved to help Rebecca to her feet, nor did the guard ask if she was okay. With the crowd dispersed, he restarted the cart and drove up the road. A girl with obsidian black hair, shaved close to the scalp on one side and left long on the other, approached Rebecca and then extended a hand. Rebecca grasped it, appreciating the strength of its grip, noticing the nails were, like her own, unmanicured. Using that hand as leverage, Rebecca rose slowly to her feet. She wasn't entirely sure what had just happened. "My name's Alice," the girl said. "It's an old-fashioned name, so I spell it with a Y." She had a nose ring that gleamed silver below intensely green eyes. "Welcome to Penmore." Her voice carried more than a hint of irony. As Rebecca's eyes filled with tears, Alice said, "Ignore that guy, he's an asshole." She used her hand to brush gravel from the back of Rebecca's t-shirt. "What's your first class?" Chemistry, I think." Rebecca's heartbeat was still accelerated from the confrontation, and she felt disoriented. "Dude, me too, I'll walk you over there." Rebecca was grateful not to have to walk into that first classroom by herself, not knowing who might be there. Kevin was not in the room, but she recognized a few of the kids who had crowded around to watch the show. One guy with large white eyeglass frames that must have been some designer brand, and a girl with the most perfectly straight, gleaming teeth Rebecca had ever seen. She wanted to go up to them and ask, "Hey, what was that about?" But then she remembered that they had just stood there and watched when the boy had pushed her down. She took a seat in the back next to Alice, making herself focus on what the instructor was writing on the whiteboard. It was one of those fancy electronic whiteboards that took up the whole front wall of the classroom, not like the ancient chalkboards at Van Nuys High. From the desk to the equipment to the books, everything in this classroom looked shiny and new. After class, another young man approached her. Tall and skinny, he wore his brown hair to his shoulders. His eyes were brown too, with little flecks of gold. His smile seemed warm, and he extended his hand. Was he running for class president? She couldn't imagine any guy from Van Nuys shaking her hand. "I'm sorry things got off on the wrong foot this morning," he said. "You're new and you deserve a better welcome than my classmates gave you." Was he for real? She wasn't sure whether to be impressed or to sneer. Then a thought entered her mind. If you saw it happen, why didn't you try to stop it? Rebecca glanced at Alice, wondering if this was a trick, but Alice just shrugged. Rebecca took his hand. A little current of heat passed between them. "I'm Mike," he told her. The three of them moved into the hallway, part of the swarm of students making their way to the next class. Alice was headed to French, but Rebecca and Mike both had history, so he offered to walk her. "What brings you to Penmore?" He had a crinkled smile and seemed sincerely interested. She started to respond, but from nowhere, Kevin appeared in front of them, 5 other boys at his side. They all shared his stocky build. She would later learn they were members of the Penmore wrestling team. They seemed to move as a unit, undifferentiated, totally attentive to Kevin's signals. He leaned one arm against the wall, effectively blocking Mike's forward movement. "Mike, Mike, Mike," Kevin said, shaking his head in feigned disappointment. He didn't even glance at Rebecca. "What did I tell you about hanging out with skanks?" Mike appeared flustered. "What are you talking about?" He did not make direct eye contact with Kevin, and Rebecca's heart sank. Looking someone in the eyes, as she'd done with Kevin earlier, was a sign of giving no deference to one's opponent. She'd learned that from the gangbangers at Van Nuys. "Don't make me tell you again, bro," Kevin said, confident he'd won his point. "I'm just looking out for your best interests. I wouldn't want you to have to learn the hard way." There was no mistaking the intended threat. In numbers, in muscle, in meanness, Mike was clearly outmatched. Rebecca almost felt sorry for him. She imagined he'd never had to fight or stand up to bullies. It was painful to witness his humiliation, to feel that she was somehow the cause of it. So she slipped away from the group, melting back into the swirl of students as she found her way to the next classroom. Once again, she chose a seat in the back. No one sat next to her. When Mike entered, his face flushed. He avoided looking at her and took a seat on the opposite side of the room. It was after that day, her first day with the students of Penmore Academy, that she began once more to dream about the house. Rebecca hadn't planned on going back to the house. It had been 8 years since she'd last had the dream, and she hadn't thought about it in a long time. She'd been a child then, but now at 16, she was almost grown up. First, she saw herself standing outside. The house stood alone in a wooded area. Although it was too dark to see the details, she could discern its outline against the sky. It stood taller than the trees surrounding it. There were steps up to a porch, and she ascended them without her feet touching wood, without any sense of directing her own movements. The door hung open, and the darkness beyond its threshold called to her, inviting her to enter. Without intending to, she did. She knew immediately where she was, even though it looked different than the last time she had visited. In previous dreams, the house had been sunny and inviting. Now it was shrouded in darkness. Although the layout of the rooms was familiar, her eyes could make out neither the furnishings nor the passageway. It felt different too than she remembered it. The air had a weight and thickness that made her body feel suspended in it. She heard her heart beat in her chest, a powerful thump that seemed to come from outside rather than inside her body. Rebecca knew she was dreaming, that somewhere her body was safely tucked beneath the sheets of her single bed. But this sensation of hovering in the dark, heavy air felt so real. There was the scent of smoke, not the smoke of a campfire or the tobacco smoke of a cigarette, but the sweeter, slightly rotted smoke of barbecue, flesh being scorched. Rebecca again had the sense of movement, though not of her limbs directing that action. She felt herself moving deeper into the house. She sensed this without being able to see. She began to hear a wheeze of breath from somewhere deeper in the house. She stopped her own inhalation to make sure that wasn't what she heard, but no, the sound was far off, was unmistakable. Her body seemed to be moving toward that sound, although her will was treading backward, trying to navigate her body toward the front door away from there. Her own intention was not as strong as the force that moved her through the house. The sound of breath grew louder. She could almost feel a breeze on her neck as that breath stirred the air. Rebecca grew cold all over. Her shoulders, her fingers, her teeth shook with a chill. The intensity of the breath increased. It was a small wind swirling around her now. "Please stop," she cried out, even though she wasn't certain whom she was speaking to. The pulse of the breath paused as if someone or something was listening and had heard her. Rebecca perceived the presence of an intelligence that was receiving her. Then she felt someone or something approach her, darker than the darkness that filled the house. Her eyes could barely distinguish a mass, denser than the dense air. And then she was enfolded in warmth. It almost felt like being wrapped in a blanket, but there was no blanket. Neither was it arms that clasped her. She struggled to identify the sensation against her skin, soft, sleek. Rebecca thought suddenly about the yellow parakeet she and her mother had had when she was small. Chuck, the parakeet, would fly from the living room to sit with her on her bed when she was sick, or perch on her glasses frames and cuddle his downy belly against her forehead. Wings, she realized. She was being embraced by a giant pair of wings, and it felt so good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Terry. I can feel those wings embracing me right now. in the chat, someone had said it's full of intrigue and I want to read more, and I think that speaks to all of us. So thank you so much. That concludes our reading. It was just inspiring in every way, and I'm just, it's exciting to see Tommy Pico is writing essays and Terry Wolverton is writing Gothic YA, and the world is shifting on its axis, and I think that inspires all of us. The graduating readers were out of this world, and I hope you feel proud, and thank you for the gift of your words. That concludes our reading for this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you here again. Thanks for everything. Bye-bye.